Hi everyone, I'm Charles Neave, the Director of Pedagogy here at St Leonard's College. This is just a short video to give you an overview of pedagogy at the college and some of the work that we've been doing over the last few years. I love the work of Simon Sinek, and he always talks about starting with why. Why are we doing things here at the college? And so when I first arrived at the college about 2 years ago, I asked about 60 or 70 staff, what do you think our pedagogical values are here at St Leonard's? And these are the three things that they came up with. They talked about innovation, innovative practice. St Leonard's has a long tradition of innovating in the learning environment. One of the first schools to go co-ed, one of the first schools to introduce really systematized outdoor education. So St Leonard's has always been around innovation, and we really encourage our teachers here to try new things, to do a bit of reading and give it a go with their own class. The second key area was authentic, caring relationships. All the staff members talked to me about that, about two things. How, as a staff member, you need to be authentic. What that means is be your true self. You don't have to play a part to be a St Leonard's teacher. You can just be who you are. And through that authenticity, start to develop really caring relationships with our students. And finally, empowered and thinking learners. And when we talk about that, what we're talking about is student agency, getting students to think, metacognitive skills, getting students to design their own curriculum. So that's the why. Now we talk about the how. And learning spotlights every year are a way that we actually start thinking about how we explore those key aspects of pedagogy. So our learning spotlights for 2023 are encouraging and developing learning from assessment, and that means formative assessment with our new schoolbox reporting, developing our skills and assessment for learning. So looking at dialogic learning, for example, having more dialogue within our classrooms, continuation of our review of ATLs, and for new staff, an ATL is an approach to learning. How are we showing our parents in our reporting? How are we feeding back to students about how they're doing with their approach to learning? With our developing and understanding of learning being connected, we've done some interdisciplinary programs. We had a really successful program in 2023 of a curriculum collapse in Year 8, and we're planning a new program for Year 7 as well through our Year 7 meetings. And we continue to map our curriculum through Atlas. We've got a literacy development group, and we're looking at our learning environment and always making sure that that's the most innovative and also inspiring thing for our students. So that's our learning spotlights for 2023. What pedagogical work have we been doing over the last few years? Well, the main thing that we've done is looking at Dr. Ron Richart's work from Harvard Graduate School of Education, Project Zero, around cultures of thinking. One book is Creating Cultures of Thinking, the 8 Forces We Must Master to Truly Transform Our Schools by Dr. Richart. And the other one is Making Thinking Visible. This is a really easy to read text that's got these really practical thinking routines as part of it. Both those books, by the way, are available in the staff resource bookcase in the main Harefield staff room. And this book in particular, introduced to our staff quite a few years ago now, had lots of thinking routines. Things like see, think, wonder, or I used to think, now I think. These are great routines that I really encourage you to look up. There's lots of information about the web. This has been around for many years now. And they're just a systemized way to ensure that our students are actually thinking when they're learning. We're trying to get away from that didactic approach, that direct instruction, I suppose we would call it, where we have the information and we're feeding that information to students, expecting them to be able to spit it back out in an assessment. We're trying to get away from that. We're trying to get them thinking about things, questioning things. So these thinking routines are a great tool to use in our classrooms to ensure that students aren't just parroting back information, that they're actually analyzing, interpreting, genuinely understanding. Dr. Ron Richart also worked with our academic directorate on the culture of thinking within leadership. So it's creating a whole school culture, not just with our students, but actually within all of us, making sure that we're all thinking about thinking, those metacognitive skills. And these are the cultural forces that define our classrooms. This is something that was shown to the staff this year and last year in our academic directorate. And it's a great little model for us to start thinking, what are we doing within our classrooms to ensure that thinking is actually taking place? And I encourage you genuinely to look that up and to have a bit of a research around Ron Ritchardt's Cultures of Thinking work. Another big aspect that we've been working on is concept-based curriculum design. And this is, of course, very linked to the culture of thinking, but all of our curriculum now has a concept as a base, not a topic. To give you an example, let's say the First Fleet in Year 5 or Year 6 History, Humanities. The topic would be the First Fleet. And then a teacher would design a curriculum about learning as much information about the First Fleet as you can. And then an assessment would be, let's re-parrot that information about what we've learned about the First Fleet. And that's exactly what we're trying to get away from, that sort of approach. A concept-based curriculum design would be to choose a concept that was relevant, something like justice. And that would be through the lens of justice. Let's explore what happened with the First Fleet. How just was it for a convict to come out to Australia? How just was it for the Indigenous peoples who are already living in Australia to have this group of people from England suddenly arriving? And you're still learning all the same facts about when the arrival happened and who was the leader and all those sorts of basic facts that you would learn in a normal humanities course, but you're exploring it at a much deeper level because you're exploring it through a concept. Our staff have been working on this for about 4 to 5 years here at the college. And so all of our curriculum, which is now on Atlas, is through that lens of a concept. We're drawing on many of the ideas of David Perkins, who's also from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. He wrote this wonderful book called Future Wise, and he talks about life-worthy learning and making sure that all the learning that we deliver in schools is life-worthy. And I suppose the question would be, is it life-worthy to learn a series of facts about the First Fleet? Or is it more life-worthy to actually learn through a concept of justice and to question the actions of those first settlers, to look at different perspectives, to actually explore a topic using a concept? Something that we started last year is something called Innovative Learning Communities, and you'll hear them shortened to ILCs by many of the staff. And that's very similar to a PLC, but we're talking about innovation as well. And really, these were really open for our staff. So they got to choose a project that they wanted to explore, and they got to carry that project through to its end and to see the impact on students. And we had such a variety. I mean, we had a recycling project around coffee cups. That was a really practical task. We had assessment done through the maths department, looking at how different assessments can work, problem-solving assessments. We had essay structure done when a couple of English teachers looked at using Lego to actually build essay structure to make that kinesthetic link for some of their learners. We had a whole new Indigenous curriculum developed as part of an ILC. So you can see the variety of what so many different staff have been working on, and that culminated in a symposium at the end of 2022. This year, in 2023, we're continuing to work on those ILCs. And as a new staff member, I encourage you to get involved. There's a design thinking process that most of the staff have gone through, and you can see we're in term 3. That's the point at which staff members are exploring their ILCs. The supported professional reflection is another process, and that's a more personal one. It is linked to your ILC, so it's definitely part of what you're doing as an ILC. It's not doubling up with work, a new thing of work, but it's all about you and what you want to do with your career. So I asked staff back in term 1 and term 2 to just start thinking about themselves, about what next steps they would like to make in terms of their career, what pathway, do they want to be looking at more curriculum development? Are they more interested in that wellbeing pastoral role? And to start setting themselves some short-term targets that will help them towards that long-term goal. That involved a meeting with a leader. It could just be their head of learning. That's absolutely fine. But some staff chose to meet somebody else, a coach that perhaps is a little bit more focused on that area that they're interested in. Have a discussion, set those targets, look at what professional learning they might require, and start working their way towards the targets. And as I mentioned, those targets can be the same as the ILC. So let's say you are designing an Indigenous curriculum for Year 8 in Term 3. That could be something you're genuinely interested in personally. In fact, it should be. And so you're doing that work with a group, but it's also a personal target for you. Next step is the second meeting, which will start to take place in Term 4. And that's when you're looking at, have you achieved those targets? And if not, what support could the school offer more? It's not an appraisal process. And in fact, it's quite, we're definitely trying to avoid that feeling of an appraisal. It's much more something personal for you, that you're trying to achieve something for your own career going forward. And we're giving you support to achieve that. So there are lots of resources. I mentioned a couple just there. A couple more resources on the Schoolbox site. There's a professional readings click that you can have a look at, and it's got professional readings under topics that you're really welcome to explore. There's quite a few short YouTube clips, a bit like this one, that you can have a watch, but on specific topics like formative assessment or high potential learners. We've got a teacher professional learning website that I encourage you as part of the St Leonard's learning site to have a look at. We've got a professional learning application process. You just go onto Schoolbox and you click the submit a PL request button, and that's when you get to look at professional learnings that might be on offer around the state. We've got this Innovator newsletter that I mentioned just earlier. And of course, Atlas is a really valuable resource to look at that curriculum design and that curriculum compilation process going forward. So I hope this has been a useful introduction to pedagogy at the college. As I mentioned, come and have a chat to me. If you've got any specific questions, perhaps about professional learning that you're contemplating, or further education that you're looking at, we're always really happy to support that going forward. And good luck.